Hey guys, tonight we're starting in the kind of village where stealing bread doesn't get you a warning. It gets you disfigured. No, seriously. One slightly warm, slightly stale, slightly stolen loaf could cost you part of your body. And, not metaphorically, so before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And tell me in the comments, where are you watching from, and what time is it where you are right now? Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You walk through a medieval village near the end of autumn. The ground crunches beneath your feet with dry leaves, and the air smells of smoke and damp barley. Men trudge past you with sacks over their shoulders, boots caked in mud, their expressions set in that tired end-of-harvest kind of way. Everything feels quiet, too quiet, until you hear the voices. A small crowd has gathered near the well. You get closer. In the center stands a boy, thin, the kind of thin that comes from skipping more meals than you should. He's clutching a loaf of bread in both hands, or what's left of it. It's been crushed, chewed, half-stomped. It barely qualifies as food anymore. Around him, silence, judgment, disapproval, and a strange mix of pity and protocol. Stole it from the widows. Basket, someone whispers. You glance at the widow. She's there too, arms folded, face unreadable. She doesn't look angry, more like resigned, like she's here because the script of village life says she has to be. The local bailiff steps forward. His robe was probably white once, but now it's the color of porridge left out too long. He clears his throat and reads from a wooden tablet that's so old, it might be held together by habit alone. Petty theft of sacred sustenance, he drones. Punishable by mark, fine, or removal of offending member. You blink, you wait, you think, they're not really going to do that. But of course they are. In medieval Europe, especially between the 11th and 13th centuries, corporal punishment was not only legal, it was expected. Petty crimes were treated as moral contamination, and the cure naturally was to remove or scar the offender. Historians still debate whether these punishments were always carried out or just used to scare people into obedience. But in this village, today, it's real. The boy is led to a thick wooden post at the edge of the square. A blacksmith arrives, not with anvil and hammer, but with a small, clean tool. A pair of iron shears. The sentence, half an ear, not the whole ear. Not the hand, just the top of the left ear, to remember, to warn. You want to look away, you don't. It happens quickly. A brief flick of metal, a hiss of breath. The boy flinches, but he doesn't scream. Someone in the back mutters, "Tough. Little thing." Another tosses a cloth his way, and here's the strange part. He's allowed to keep the bread, not out of mercy, but symbolism. You stole, you paid, you get the thing that cost you. He limps to the shade of a nearby tree and sits. He looks at the bread for a long time before biting into it. Slowly, methodically, like it might still betray him, and you realize this wasn't about justice. Not really. It was about memory, marking a body so the story walks around in plain sight. Because in this place, in this time, justice isn't blind. It's extremely visual, and it leaves a mark. You don't expect the next scene to be so petty, but here you are, just one village over, watching a man stand trial for lying about the price of turnips. Yes, turnips. The market is buzzing as usual. Vendors shouting their best deals, children chasing chickens, old women haggling like their lives depend on one extra onion. But all that comes to a halt when the bell rings. Not the church bell. The justice bell. It hangs from a crooked post near the town center, and when it rings, everyone stops. A man is pulled toward it by two guards. His apron is stained with vegetable juice. His hands are still full of dirt. He's a seller, a farmer, and apparently a liar. He claimed his turnips were imported from Avignon, someone says behind you. You blink. Imported. Turnips. The local magistrate steps forward. His robe is greener than it should be, possibly to assert he has some connection to the land. His voice is slow, deliberate, like someone reading a bedtime story to a room full of very tired adults. This man, he says, is accused of falsehood. In commerce, he stated his turnips were noble from foreign soil. They were not. They were grown nice behind his barn. A gasp. The drama. And then comes the punishment. No fine. No lashes. A cage. Suspended above the market square is a small iron cage, just large enough for one unlucky body to curl up in. It's hung about 6 feet off the ground in full view of everyone. It's meant for frauds, gossips, and the occasional drunkard with opinions about bishops. The crowd begins to whisper as the man is forced up the ladder, one step at a time. His face is flushed, more from shame than exertion. When he reaches the top, they open the cage and stuff him in like a sack of leeks. He fits barely. And then, oh yes, someone starts throwing vegetables, not big ones. No one wants to knock him out, just enough to make a point. A tomato here, a carrot stub, a wilted cabbage leaf floats gently into his lap like judgment from above. You sit on a bench and observe. He doesn't scream, he doesn't protest, he just sits hunched, tomato juice on his brow, as if accepting his fate like a man who knew deep down this day would come. And the best part? He'll be up there until sundown. That's tradition. Historically, pillories and cages like this were common in medieval towns, not to torture but to humiliate. Public shame was currency, and punishment needed to be memorable. Historians still debate whether this specific cage was an invention of this region or borrowed from Flanders, but either way it works. By mid-afternoon, the crowd has moved on. Children glance up and giggle. Someone ties a turnip to the cage with string. It sways like a lantern of mockery. You lean back, arms crossed. In a strange way, it's peaceful. Ridiculous, yes, absurd, definitely, but peaceful. Because in this town, no one escapes the truth. Not even about turnips. You're starting to wonder if anyone in this era took naps, because even pretending to rest can apparently get you into serious trouble. Today's scene unfolds in a barley field just beyond the village limits. The sun is high, the air is thick, and everything smells like warm hay and the faint sweetness of overripe fruit. You spot a farmer lying flat on his back between 2 rows of stalks, eyes closed, hands over his chest, snoring, faintly. Seems harmless, right? Apparently not. A group of townspeople approaches from the path. They're led by a man with a crooked walking stick and a forehead lined by what must be decades of suspicion. He points. That's the one, he says, like he's spotting a criminal mastermind. That's the one who said he couldn't help. With the irrigation. You blink. The farmer stirs as he hears footsteps. He opens one eye, confused. By the time he's fully sitting up, he's surrounded. What's going on, he asks. You told the council you were sick, says the man with the stick. Too weak to dig. I was, he insists. Fever. It broke. Too late. The village. Magistrate is called. This one wears a wide-brimmed hat and a robe that seems to have never been washed. He listens to both sides with the patience of a man who enjoys long, drawn-out punishments. Then he announces, feigning illness in times of communal labor is a civic betrayal. The punishment, 3 days in the stocks, wearing a garland of onions. Yes, onions. A necklace of bulbous, fragrant reminders that you lied about being too tired to help. They bring the stocks from storage. It's old, splintered, and smells vaguely of past regrets. The farmer is locked in. His feet stick out awkwardly. A young girl carefully arranges the onion garland around his neck. She smiles. He does not. And then comes the mockery. Villagers pass by, some tossing breadcrumbs, others offering fake sympathy. You need a bed, dear, one calls. We could wheel the whole field over for you. A dog pees on the side of the stocks. The farmer doesn't flinch. He's entered the stage of acceptance. Historically, pretending to be ill to avoid work wasn't just frowned upon. It was a social offense. In small communities, everyone's labor mattered. If one person shirked, it threw off everything from harvest to harvest festival. Historians still debate whether punishments like these were formal laws or spontaneous traditions, passed down like recipes and grudges. But they were definitely effective. After all, who wants to smell like onion for a week? As you sit nearby watching the sun move slowly across the sky, you think, maybe naps are dangerous. Maybe honesty is overrated. Or maybe, just maybe, onions have always been more than just seasoning. Because here they're justice. You wake to the sound of murmurs and rustling silk. Today's trial is not in the fields or the market, but in the town square, a slightly elevated platform draped in red cloth, as if expecting royalty. But the accused, a young man, maybe 20, maybe younger. His boots are what catch your attention first. They're fine, too fine. Shiny leather, trimmed with a gold thread cord. Nothing over the top, but in this place, in this year, that's all it takes. He stands awkwardly on the platform, eyes darting between the crowd gathering below. Most of them are dressed in browns, greys, humble weaves. A few even go barefoot. In that sea of dull wool, those boots are practically glowing. A town official reads from a scroll, wearing garments beyond one's station with intent to deceive or elevate status falsely. Someone behind you mutters, he's just a cobbler's son. Another adds, he made them himself, that's the insult. Ah, so it's not about theft, it's about pride. Pride in shoemaking. You look back at the boots, they're well stitched, balanced, probably a masterpiece for someone without a title. But that's the problem. In many medieval towns, strict sumptuary laws governed who could wear what. Color, material, even the shape of a sleeve could be dictated by class or profession. Historians still debate how strictly these laws were enforced. Some say they were more about envy than justice. Others argue they maintained the natural order. But here, they're taken very seriously. The punishment is declared. The boots will be removed, publicly. The offender will walk a lap around the square barefoot, while holding a sign that reads, "Pride has no soul." Yes, with the pun, the crowd doesn't cheer, they chuckle. Two guards kneel and begin to unlace the boots slowly, as if disarming a relic. The young man's face flushes, not with rage, but something worse, embarrassment. He's not a thief. He's just someone who tried to look like more than he was born into. When the boots are off, they are held aloft like evidence, then placed on a small pedestal beside the judge's bench, where they'll remain for a week as symbols of vanity. The lap begins. The boy walks slowly, sign in hand, stepping over pebbles and chicken droppings. People point. A few clap. Politely. No one throws anything this time. It's not that kind of crime, but it's still a spectacle. You can't help but think, if this is how they react to fancy shoes, imagine if he'd worn a hat. By the time he completes the lap, his feet are red, his eyes lowered, and the sign hangs crooked from his hands. Someone gives him a cup of water. He drinks, then disappears into the alley behind the square, a little less proud, a little more barefoot. And you sit back, wondering what crime it is really, to want to be seen. Today the crime is a card game. You weren't expecting drama to unfold over a table of dice and slightly bent playing cards, but here you are, seated in the corner of a smoky tavern, watching it happen in slow motion. It's early evening. The tavern is warm and loud, fire crackling, mugs clinking, someone trying and failing to tune a lute in the back. Locals huddle around tables, trading gossip and coins with equal frequency. At one table, however, things have grown tense. 4 men are seated. One wears a deep blue cloak, a nobleman, by the way everyone avoids eye contact. The others? Merchants maybe, farmers with ambition. And in front of them, coins, a half-drunk pitcher of ale and a suspicious-looking card. You lean closer. The noble slams his fist on the table. He played the Knight of Antlers. That card was banned. There's a beat of silence, then confusion, then outrage. You're not well versed in medieval card etiquette, but apparently someone just committed a grave offense. A rule violation, possibly heretical. The accused, an older man with trembling hands and a crooked smile, says, "It was in tea." The deck, I drew it, that's not a crime. But in this room, in this tavern, with this noble, it is. A bell is rung, not a large one, just a small brass handbell the innkeeper keeps behind the counter for moments exactly like this. And soon, justice arrives. The magistrate shows up still chewing. He wipes his mouth with his sleeve and takes a long look at the accused. The Knight of Antlers, he says slowly, was outlawed after the Goose Riot of 47. You raise an eyebrow. No one explains what that was. The punishment? A hat. But not just any hat. A large, feathered, deeply ridiculous hat, shaped like a goose and painted bright yellow. The offender must wear it for 3 full market days, and when spoken to, he must respond only in rhyming couplets. Failure to do so adds an extra day of hat time. You watch as the hat is brought out from a locked cabinet. It has eyes and a beak. The man is forced to kneel, and the hat is placed gently on his head like a twisted coronation. He mutters something unintelligible. "Speak in rhyme," someone reminds him. "I played the card. It's true, I did." But banning geese is clearly mid. A cheer goes up. Even the noble cracks a smile. Historically, public humiliation wasn't always violent. In many medieval towns, certain punishments were designed to ridicule rather than harm, especially for crimes that were social, not moral. Wearing absurd costumes, performing silly tasks, or speaking only in song were real methods used to restore order, or at least remind others not to take liberties with the law. Historians still question whether this goose hat tradition was local folklore or widespread policy, but either way, it works. By the end of the night, the man is reciting limericks about hail and turnips while children gather to laugh. He drinks free. He's technically being punished, but he seems to be enjoying himself. You sip your drink and smile. In a world full of heavy laws and harsh judgments, sometimes the sentence is just a little silly hat, and maybe that's enough. It begins with a candle, a single stubby candle in a windowsill, forgotten, mostly melted. Its flame flickers unattended as the wind picks up through the cracks in the stone walls. And somewhere in the distance, a scream. Not of fear, but of bureaucracy. You're walking down a quiet lane at dusk. Everything smells faintly of garlic and sheep. The stones under your feet are still warm from the day. It should be peaceful. But the bell is ringing again, not for crime this time, for danger. The source? Someone left a candle burning after curfew. That someone is now standing in the middle of a courtyard, surrounded by townsfolk holding buckets of sand and straw brooms. The accused is a middle-aged woman with soot on her dress and hair tied up. In a hasty bun, she's red-faced not from guilt, but from sheer frustration. It didn't even tip over. She shouts. The magistrate, who seems to have aged 10 years since breakfast, points to a line in his leather-bound manual. Negligent flame during hours of rest shall be tried as willful endangerment of the collective peace. The punishment? Not. They find not even jail and exorcism. You blink. Surely he means metaphorical? No. They actually bring out a monk with a censer and a large water-stained book. He mutters Latin under his breath while waving the smoke around the woman like she's harboring the spirit of an arsonist. Then they tie a string of garlic around her neck, then a small bell. She'll wear it, the magistrate declares, for 7 days. The crowd nods solemnly. Historically, fire was among the greatest fears of medieval communities. Entire towns were made of wood, packed tightly together, with little capacity to stop a blaze once it began. One candle, one stove, one ember, and everything could vanish overnight. So they took it seriously, maybe too seriously. Historians still discuss whether these public rituals were religiously symbolic or just creative methods of deterrence. Either way, they worked. No one wanted to be the bell and garlic lady. As the woman is led through the square, people stare. Children mimic the bell. One dog starts barking at the smell. The woman mutters something that sounds suspiciously like a curse, but quietly. And then it happens, the bell ring, by accident, just once. A soft ting. She freezes. Everyone looks. Someone gasps. You almost laugh, because in this town, fire is bad, yes. But ringing your bell without divine approval, unforgivable. You barely recover from the bell incident when the next case slides into absurdity so gracefully, you're not sure if it's punishment or performance art. It starts with a sneeze. Not yours. Not now. But someone else's, sharp, sudden, and scandalous. You're sitting at the edge of a small stone plaza, watching a funeral procession shuffle by. Everything is hushed. Black robes, slow footsteps, the occasional sniffle. The kind of somber stillness that even the pigeons seem to respect, until a man, young, well-dressed, suspiciously pollen-sensitive, sneezes. Loudly. He doesn't say pardon, doesn't cover his mouth, doesn't even try to look apologetic. He just sneezes, shrugs, and continues walking like nothing happened. The collective horror is immediate. Someone gasps. A child starts crying. The widow glances up in dismay. You think surely that's the end of it. But no, an elder dressed in thick wool with an embroidered sash steps forward. He taps the offender on the shoulder. "Did you bless the living?" he asks. "Did you excuse the air you disrupted?" The man is confused. It was just, no. It was not just anything. And then the official phrase, violation of spiritual etiquette. In this town, sneezing during sacred rites without immediately blessing. The gathering, or at the very least acknowledging your disruption, is seen as an offense against community harmony. Apparently, breath matters, especially during grief. The punishment? Reflection. Literally. He is ordered to sit for 3 days in front of the public chapel on a small stool, facing a polished brass mirror. He must stare at his own face for the entire morning period and reflect on the chaos he has caused through careless exhalation. It sounds made up. You wish it were. But they really bring out the mirror. It's oval, slightly dented, but it does the job. They prop it against a small barrel, give the man a stool, and leave him there under strict instruction not to blink too often or look away. He sneezes again. Everyone flinches. Historically, sneezing was often tied to superstitions, omens, spirits, even the devil slipping in or out through the nostrils. In some regions, not responding to a sneeze with a blessing was seen as opening a door for illness or worse, misfortune. Historians still puzzle over whether this particular town's mirror punishment was symbolic, religious, or just something someone once suggested sarcastically that became law. The man tries to keep a straight face. He fails. By noon, his reflection is glistening with boredom, and he's begun making quiet conversation with himself. Passers-by pause. Some offer unsolicited advice on posture. One child drops a feather on his head and runs. You sip a drink under the shade of a fig tree and watch. And you realize some punishments don't hurt the body. They just make you sit with yourself. Literally. You follow a trail of feathers through a cobbled alley and emerge into a courtyard already buzzing with disbelief. Today's case involves theft, but not gold or livestock or bread. A chicken, a rather unremarkable, moderately plump, totally ordinary chicken. Except it isn't ordinary anymore because someone insists it has testified. You blink. Did you mishear? Nope. You see the accused first. A woman older, wrapped in layers of cloth that look like they've never quite dried. She stands with arms folded and eyes defiantly narrowed. Her crime? Stealing her neighbor's prized hen under cover of night. The neighbor, of course, is present. A man whose voice could peel paint. He shouts about betrayal, about missing eggs, about how that hen always came when called. But then comes the centerpiece. The chicken. It's standing on a low table, tied gently by a string, preening itself as if nothing is wrong. Except its feathers have been dyed. Bright red on the wings, blue down the back, and a strange green smudge over the head like a confused peacock. You don't even have time to wonder why before someone explains. The accused marked the hen for ownership, a town clerk declares, to pass it off as her own. And here's the strange part. The town has accepted the chicken as witness. She would not wear these colors willingly, says the magistrate. You almost laugh. But everyone's serious. Apparently, in this village, livestock could be brought into trials as passive evidence. If a goat wandered to its former home or a pig refused to obey new commands, that was enough to prove theft. Historians still argue over this kind of animal testimony. Some records show pigs being questioned in medieval France. Others hint that chickens were used as oracles. But today the hen is Exhibit A. The sentence? A week of public service. For the woman, not the hen. She is ordered to carry the chicken with her everywhere, into the bakery, through the market, to church. If you claim it so boldly, says the magistrate, you shall live with it boldly. And so she does. The next morning you see her trudging down the street, chicken on her shoulder like a poorly balanced hat. Children laugh. Adults step aside. The bird flaps now and then, clearly displeased. One boy offers to trade her a duck. She ignores him. By day 3, they seem almost at peace. She's stopped cursing under her breath. The hen's feathers are fading. By day 5, she names it. And by day 7, she hands it back to the neighbor, quietly, without fuss. You wonder if she'll miss it. Probably. But she'll remember one thing for certain. In this town, even a chicken can speak louder than you. This time, the offense is musical. You hear it before you see it. A sharp, almost cheerful tune drifting across the rooftops. Someone is playing a pipe, badly. At first, it seems harmless. Just a few off-key notes wheezing into the early morning. Air. You even find it charming in a clumsy sort of way, like a rooster trying to imitate a minstrel. But then comes the knock. Not at your door, at the door of the man responsible. You follow the procession with a mix of curiosity and dread. A group of townspeople has gathered outside a modest house near the chapel. An older man, shirt half buttoned, hair in frantic spirals, stands at the door clutching a wooden flute. He looks confused, possibly still half asleep. He's done. "It every morning this week," someone hisses. Before sunrise, another adds, "Woke my baby twice, the cow too." The town constable arrives. He looks less like a lawman and more like someone who's very tired of explaining the same thing over and over. He approaches the flutist. "We've warned you," repeatedly, about the melody. The man defends himself. "I'm practicing for the harvest fair. The harvest fair is 2 months away. I want it to be ready." The constable sighs. "The villagers have submitted an official complaint. You've committed musical intrusion. Apparently in this village there's a law on the books forbidding sonic disturbances prior to the 3rd bell, unless sanctioned for holy or official use." The punishment? Mandatory silence, but again, this town has flair. The offender is given a flute, a new one, but the mouthpiece is sealed shut. It cannot make a sound. He must wear it around his neck with a ribbon every day for 2 weeks. Anytime someone greets him, he must raise the flute and mime playing it. That's the rule. You see him later, walking slowly through the square, lifting the mute flute to his lips every few steps. Children giggle. Some adults try to talk to him, just to make him do it again. He bows deeply each time, miming a full solo. Evening, someone gives him a hat and throws in a coin. 2 more follow. He's become inadvertently a performer. Historically, noise laws weren't uncommon in medieval towns, with homes packed tightly together and no real insulation, mourning. Noise could disrupt livestock, prayer schedules, even court proceedings. Towns had quiet hours, and music without permit could be punished like theft. Historians still wonder if punishments like this were formal or improvised, but you suspect someone once said it as a joke, and it stuck. By day 5, the man adds silent dance moves to his act. By day 10, he has a following, but through it all, not a single note escapes that flute, and when the punishment ends, he carves a new one. But this time, he plays in the afternoons, and no one complains, because in this village, music is sacred, but timing even more so. Tonight, justice smells like lavender. You're following a narrow path behind the village bathhouse, where a soft yellow glow spills from its small windows and steam curls into the cool evening air. Normally, this is a place of peace, soothing. Waters whispered gossip, the occasional splash, but not tonight, because tonight someone brought soap, not just any soap. Imported soap, and that apparently is a problem. Inside the bathhouse, villagers are gathered in a half-circle around a woman holding a small, creamy white bar, like it's both treasure and curse. The room smells incredible. A sharp, floral perfume that dances over the usual damp musk of boiled herbs and tired feet. The bathmaster stands, arms crossed, brow furrowed. "That's not village made," she says. "We have rules." The accused lifts her chin. "It's from the coast. My cousin brought it," the crowd murmurs, some in awe, others in horror. You piece it together. This isn't about hygiene, it's about loyalty. Every village has its own soap maker, usually an elder with a pot and a very specific opinion about goat fat ratios. To use foreign soap is to commit a kind of olfactory betrayal. The town magistrate, who has arrived still dripping from his own unfinished bath, confirms it. Violation of communal trade ethics and scent disruption. The punishment? Neutralization. The Woman is to sit in the middle of the square tomorrow with a bowl of crushed charcoal and apply it to her hands, neck, and any other areas touched by the imported soap until the scent is adequately muted. Then she must offer a full apology to the village soap maker and gift her a bar of the offending soap to study. You ask a bystander if this is normal. Happens every few years, he says. Last time it was shampoo made with figs. Historically, small guilds or households often controlled production of everyday items like soap, candles, and ink. To buy or display an outside product risked not just economic offense but social unrest. Historians still question whether these soap-related feuds were serious or symbolic, but in this village it's clearly both. The next day, you watch. The woman walk calmly into the square, carrying a small wooden bowl. The charcoal is thick, sticky. She applies it slowly, methodically, smearing away lavender until her arms look like they've been dipped in smoke. Then she stands. I honor our craft, she says. I forgot that scent can divide. No one claps. But a few heads nod. The local soap maker, an elderly woman with wrists like iron, steps forward. She accepts the foreign soap like a sacred scroll and sniffs it once. Her eyes narrow. Too much. Rosemary, she declares. The crowd disperses. You walk away, the scent of lavender still faint on the breeze. And you wonder what else in this town could start a riot. Answer, probably cinnamon. There's a commotion by the well this morning. An unusually loud one for a place that usually hosts only buckets, gossip, and the occasional complaint about goat prices. You edge closer. At first, all you see is a cluster of villagers peering down into the well as if someone dropped something precious, a ring maybe, or a bucket, or someone's patience. But then you hear it, splash, and a very specific shout. He's in there. Not an item, a person. You lean over the mossy stone edge and sure enough, floating in waist-deep water, soaked to the skin and sneezing violently, is a man with ink on his fingers and a quill still tucked behind one ear. You step back, a scribe. The cow, kind who writes notices, records marriages, copies prayers. He's clinging to the rope ladder like it personally betrayed him. The charge? Forgery. Apparently, someone found two nearly identical love letters in circulation, one delivered to the blacksmith's daughter, the other to the miller's niece. Both signed by the same man, both in the same handwriting. The writer denies everything, the scribe does not. I was paid, he says. I don't write feelings, I write words. But here, that distinction doesn't matter. In this town, forged documents, especially of the romantic variety, are treated as emotional sabotage. The punishment, the dunking quill. It's a specific ritual reserved for scribes who confuse hearts with ink. They are submerged repeatedly into the town well until the excess passion is rinsed away. The townspeople hoist the rope. The scribe rises, sputtering, dripping, and swearing softly. Then they lower him again, down, up, down again. A woman in the crowd takes notes. He's on his fourth submersion, she says cheerfully. Same as the last one who forged a burial certificate. Historically, scribes held delicate social power. They could document, alter, or erase with a flick of the wrist. It's why, in many towns, scribes were held to strict codes and punished harshly when those codes were broken. Some historians believe dunking was symbolic baptism, a cleansing of sin through discomfort. Others think it was just an excuse to be dramatic near a water source. Either way, it's cold. After the fifth dunk, the scribe is hauled up and declared emotionally neutral. He's given a towel and forbidden from writing romantic correspondence. They were 30 days. You spot him later near the bakery scribbling on a piece of parchment. You peek, it's a recipe. You sigh with relief until you see the title, "To the One Who Stole My Bread and My Heart." He's learned nothing, but in this town, at least now, he's clean. By now you've learned that almost anything can be illegal here, even naming a cow. You hear the news from a breathless boy carrying a basket of pears. He blurts, "It's the butcher. He named her Clara. That's all it takes to get you moving." You find the butcher standing in the center of the livestock pen, arms folded, chin raised defiantly. Behind him stands a cow, large, dappled, docile. And on her side, in bright chalk, someone has scrawled the name Clara. A crowd is gathering. What's the problem? The butcher asks, with the tone of a man who knows exactly what the problem is. The law, says the village recorder, who always smells faintly of pickles and authority, clearly states, naming food stock prior to sale or slaughter shall be considered emotional tampering and forbidden. A murmur of agreement. It's not emotional, the butcher insists. It's efficient, easier to track inventory. But no one buys that. Because Clara is now more than a cow. She's a symbol. She's been humanized. And in this village, that's dangerous. You ask a bystander if this happens often. She nods. Last year, someone named a chicken Augustine. The priest cried. The punishment? An empathy fast. For 3 days, the butcher must live among the animals, sleep in the hay, eat from troughs and refrain from speaking any human names. Every reference must be made by sound or gesture only. He can moo, but not say, Clara, explains the recorder. Mooing is allowed. They strip him of his apron and escort him to the edge of the pen, where a bed of straw and a bowl of barley porridge await. The cow sniffs him once, then promptly ignores him. That evening you pass by and see the butcher lying flat on his back, staring at the stars while a goat nibbles his sleeve. He's mooing to himself, softly. By day 2, the children come to watch. One brings him a carrot, another asks him what Clara thinks of all this. He just shakes his head and makes a vague lowing noise. Historians are divided on whether such laws existed broadly across medieval towns or were specific to villages with overly sentimental clergy. But there are records of animals being named posthumously, only after the meat was served, never before. By the end of day 3, the butcher looks humbled, itchy, and deeply exhausted. He emerges from the pen with hay in his hair and a new respect for boundaries. He never says Clara again. He names his next cow item 4. No one complains. It's market day again, and the air is alive with the usual symphony. The creak of carts, the call of merchants, the occasional squawk of a disgruntled goose. But you're not here for the deals. You're here because someone tampered with a scale, and in this town that's treason with a side of cabbage. You find the scene near the pickle stall. A man with hands stained purple from beets stands behind a tilted wooden scale, visibly sweating under the weight of his own mistake. On the platform, a head of lettuce that allegedly, suspiciously, weighs less than it should. A crowd gathers. Not angry, curious, an elder leans in, arms folded. It was a hollow stone, he says, slipped under the scale plate. Classic trick. The accused mutters something about needing extra coin to repair a broken roof. A child pipes up, but you told my mother the lettuce was blessed by monks. The real crime isn't greed, it's theater. He told a story, gave false weight, sold a miracle in cabbage form. The town's response? Our stage. The man is given a costume, half merchant, half fool, and ordered to perform 3 public plays written by the village scribes, entitled The Lettuce That Lied the Weighing of Morals. The Pickled Redemption, each must be acted at midday in the square, complete with props, audience participation, and a musical intro played on a single cracked drum. On day 1, he stands on the makeshift stage, surrounded by barrels of turnips, delivering his lines with the energy of a man who's both ashamed and slightly amused. I weighed my soul and found it light, he says, bowing dramatically to a goat chewing the scenery. The crowd claps. Some toss coins. Others throw lettuce. Historically, punishment through performance was not unheard of, especially in towns where public humiliation doubled as civic entertainment. Morality plays weren't just for Sunday sermons. They were tools of regulation, disguised as drama. Historians still discuss whether such sentence theater traditions came from church influence or sheer boredom. Either way, they left a mark. By the final performance, the man has rewritten half the script, added 2 dances, and gained a fan club of schoolchildren who now call him Sir Wakes-a-Lot. And the scale? He repairs it, paints it gold, hangs it above his stall like a trophy. No more tricks. Now, when people buy lettuce from him, they smile because even if it's not a holy vegetable, at least it comes with a story. It rains the next morning, soft, steady, the kind of drizzle that makes cloaks heavy and patience thin. You're sipping something warm under the eaves of the baker's awning when someone rushes past. cloaked in soaked wool and dread. A cry rises from the square. "Forgery!" someone shouts. You rush to see, but it's not forged coins, not fake parchments, it's bread, specifically imitation sacred bread. You reach the crowd gathered around a trembling young apprentice. On the ground before him, a basket of round, pale loaves, unmarked, undecorated, and dangerously similar to the ceremonial bread used only during festival liturgies. A nun steps forward. "He sold these as blessed bread," she says, holding up a half-eaten loaf. "And this is barley, barley!" The crowd hisses, the boy stammers. I thought it wouldn't matter. It's shaped the same. I carved the crosses myself." A priest sighs, pinching the bridge of his nose. Shape is not sanctity. Here the line between sacred and secular bread is ironclad. The real festival loaves are made with specific flour, blessed 3 times, marked with the priest's seal, and only distributed during lunar feasts. To imitate them? Spiritual counterfeiting. The punishment? Redemption through flour. The boy is sentenced to bake bread for the entire village, under strict supervision for 7 days straight. No talking, no sleeping outside the bakehouse, and each loaf must carry a different hand-carved message of apology. You visit on day 2. The boy is coated in flour, eyes red from smoke and sleeplessness. He's just pulled a batch from the oven. Each round marked with phrases like "Forgive me," "I meant yeast, not heresy, and it was just barley." By day 4, the messages grow existential. "Who am I without dough? I miss salt. Bread is heavy." One loaf simply says, "Sorry, God." Historically, bread was sacred, not just spiritually but economically. Tampering with its form or symbolism risked not just insult, but inflation, famine panic, or ritual confusion. In some regions, false claims about blessed food led to exile or public penance. Historians argue whether the loaves themselves held power or if belief made them sacred. But either way, deception was dangerous. By day 7, the bakery smells like penance and pride. Villagers line up not just for bread, but for poetry. A local merchant commissions a loaf that reads, "Marry me?" and hands it to his blushing sweetheart. The apprentice delivers his final tray to the nuns, 12 perfect loaves marked simply, "Truth." They nod once. He collapses into a flour sack and sleeps for 12 hours. You buy a loaf that reads, "I'll never do it again." It's a little dry but honest. You wouldn't expect drama in the town square over a hat, but this hat is enormous, and the drama equally oversized. You arrive just as the accused is being escorted to the stone platform in front of the fountain. He's grinning too much. That alone sets off alarm bells. He's wearing the hat in question, a towering feathered velvet monstrosity, bright crimson, with a golden band and an attached veil that trails behind him like a royal cape. Children gasp. A dog barks. A merchant whispers, "He wore it to church." And just like that, it clicks. This town has a dress code, not officially, but culturally. You can be humble, you can be clean, you can even be a little eccentric, but you do not outshine. The priest's mitre, the accused, a traveling tailor with a flair for the dramatic. He made the hat himself, claimed it was a tribute to local style. Unfortunately, it blocked 3 pews during morning prayer and sent an elderly widow into a sneezing fit. The punishment? Fashion reversal. For 1 full week, the man must wear progressively smaller hats, each day more ridiculous than the last. Day 1, a standard linen cap. Day 2, a child's knitted bonnet. Day 3, a walnut shell on a string. Day 4, a coin glued to his forehead, labeled hat. Day 5, nothing, but he must mime wearing a hat. Day 6, a drawing of a hat pinned to his chest. Day 7, the original hat, but on someone else's head. Each morning, the townspeople gather for their hatting. A small ceremony is held. The previous hat is retired, a new one revealed. He plays along beautifully. Day 5 is a crowd favorite. He walks with perfect posture, one hand delicately adjusting an invisible brim. When someone compliments his hat, he bows solemnly and says, "Thank you, it's invisible silk." Historically, clothing in medieval towns was tightly bound to social roles. A merchant couldn't dress like a noble, a tailor couldn't mimic clergy. Sumptuary laws varied, but even where they weren't written, they were felt. Historians note that hat laws were particularly potent. Headwear marked rank, piety, and profession. To misuse a hat, a public spectacle. By day 7, the tailor has won the town's affection. He volunteers to make modest hats for the entire choir. His punishment ends with a small parade, led by the priest, now wearing the crimson hat proudly. The crowd cheers, the tailor winks, and for once, justice fits. Perfectly. Night falls slowly in this village, like ink spreading through cloth. The lamps are lit one by one, casting flickering amber halos across cobblestones still warm from the afternoon sun. But even in this soft, sleepy hour, trouble brews over something. Unexpected, a name. You hear whispers as you pass the square. He renamed the rooster, that's all it takes. Curiosity hooks into you like a button caught in fabric. You arrive at the edge of the commotion, just in time to see an elderly man, short, wiry, and stubborn, standing in the doorway of the coop behind the town's granary, arms crossed and lips pursed like someone who's dared the world to disagree. Beside him stands the rooster in question, regal, orange-red, offended. The issue? The rooster has always been named King Harold. Every child in the village knows it. The baker's daughter feeds him crumbs. The blacksmith whistles his name every morning. Even the church bell used to ring after his crow. But last night, under a sliver of moon, the man repainted the coop and replaced the sign. It now reads, Sir Pexwell III. You wait for the laughter. There is none. Because in this town, certain animals are part of the social fabric. To rename one is to edit the village memory without permission. A council is summoned, no robes, no scrolls. Just 4 elders in mismatched cloaks and enough collective eyebrow strength to flatten a cart. The man defends himself. He looked more like a Sir Pexwell. Harold is outdated. A pause. Then, the rooster isn't yours to rename. The punishment? Restoration of narrative. For 10 days the man must recite at dawn and dusk the complete history of King Harold the Rooster, a tale composed by the village's children over the past 6 years. It includes battles with imaginary foxes, a forbidden romance with a hen named Clotilda, and a brief stint as honorary guard of the grain storage. He must wear a sash that reads Royal Biographer and begin each session with Gather close for the truth of feathers. You attend the first recitation. The man reads in a flat tone, but the children are delighted. They correct him when he forgets Harold's catchphrase, cock-a-doodle diplomacy, and one child even plays Clotilda for dramatic reenactments. By day 5, the man's tone shifts. By day 7, he's ad-libbing new chapters. By day 10, he's crying during the climax, where Harold saves a gosling from a falling barrel. Historically, animals in small communities were more than property. They were fixtures of tradition, symbols of rhythm and continuity. Changing their names wasn't just confusing, it was tampering with memory. Historians still puzzle over how oral lore fused with civic identity in rural towns. But here it's alive, flapping, crowing at sunrise. On the final day, the man steps down from the coop stage, bows low and mutters, Harold it is. The rooster crows, everyone claps. You realize with quiet satisfaction that sometimes the most sacred things have feathers. It begins with a puddle, a harmless one really. Just a shallow, muddy patch on the road between the chapel and the bakery. It sits there each morning like a lazy eye, and most people know to step around it, but today, someone didn't. You see the splash before you hear the shout. A woman in a pale linen robe, fresh from morning prayers, now wears a spectacular stripe of brown across her side, the result of a cartwheel too confident for its own good. The driver of the cart, a young man named Ivo, known for 3 things: fast turns, questionable songs, and a complete inability to say sorry without making it worse. He jumps down. It was the puddle's fault. A collective inhale from the bystanders. The woman lifts her chin, calm, controlled, muddy. She says only one word, reckless. It echoes like a spell. Apparently, in this town, reckless splashing, especially of the priesthood or elders, is not only a social crime but a moral one. There are records, laws, scrolls with diagrams. You are not to soak the blessed, ever Ivo pleads his case. The road is uneven. The mule slipped. The mule looks unbothered. The baker suggests a punishment. Make him clean it. Too easy, says the washerwoman. A murmur rises. Ideas swirl. The final decision? Restorative immersion. For the next 7 days, Ivo must rise before dawn, fetch water from the spring, and personally wash the feet of every person he splashed, and anyone else, who walks that stretch of road in the morning. His hands must remain muddy for the entire duration of the ritual. No drying, no gloves. On day 1, he tries humor. "Come, let Ivo cleanse your holy toes," he calls. He gets silence and 30 pairs of feet. On day 3, the children line up just for the fun of it. One brings a duck. It was in the splash zone too. Ivo sighs and washes the duck's webbed foot. By day 5, something strange happens. He starts humming softly, rhythmically as he works. Some people linger, chat. He compliments their sandals. One elder weeps, says no one has touched his feet since his wife passed. Ivo's humor fades, but not his care. By day 7, his hands are raw, his tunic stained beyond repair, but his eyes quieter. At sunset, the priestess approaches. She offers him a basin of lavender water. He hesitates. "For you," she says, "to remember that what you touches back." Historically, public penance rituals like foot washing were rare but powerful symbols of humility and restoration. They were less about punishment, more about witnessing transformation. Some historians debate whether this practice truly cleaned the body or just the ego. You watch as Ivo kneels one last time, dips his hands into the lavender water, and lets out a breath he's been holding all week. The puddle is still there, but now people step around it, just a little more carefully. The last case arrives not with shouts, but with silence. It begins in the village garden, a quiet communal patch of earth behind the monastery wall. It's a place of peas and prayers, of herb bundles hanging from windows, and small wooden signs, marked with names like Mary's sage and Brother Elias's parsley. And one morning, those signs are gone. All of them. You arrive just as the nuns are discovering the loss. The plots remain, tidy as ever. The thyme is thriving. The lavender glows purple in the early sun. But the signs, the ones that marked each monk and sister's careful contribution, have vanished. A novice kneels in disbelief beside a row of marjoram. "It's not that they're gone," she whispers. "It's that now we don't know whose is whose." The community is disoriented. Not angry yet, just untethered until a clue is found. In the dirt near the rosemary, a single piece of parchment, folded, smudged, titled, "The Garden Belongs to All." You read it. It's poetic, almost too polished. Lines about unity, about ego, about freeing plants from the tyranny of names. A manifesto of vegetable anarchy, and below it, unsigned, a humble servant of soil. The culprit is discovered by noon. It's the bell ringer, young, earnest, recently obsessed with equality. His reasoning? Why divide what feeds us all, the he? Punishment? Reclassification? For 30 days, the bell ringer must serve as the official garden scribe, but under strict orders. He must write a new sign for every plant in the garden, not with ownership, but with full personality profiles. The signs now read, "Dame Rosemary spins tales of sea air and roast chickens. Sir Parsley, mildly bitter, but good in a crowd. Mother Sage, keeper of quiet thoughts and sore throats." Each morning more appear. The garden becomes not just a place of growth, but of stories. Children visit just to read the updates. Thyme is having a rough week. Basil dreams of Italy. Mint regrets nothing. At first, the monks are skeptical. By week 2, they start requesting updates. "Can you give fennel a backstory? Tell us what chives think of onions." By week 4, the bell ringer is exhausted, but smiling. One nun whispers, He's naming again. But this time with reverence. Historically, names were sacred. To name was to claim, to shape memory, to anchor identity. To erase names, even with good intent, was to disrupt a delicate balance of contribution and care. Historians still debate whether such name erasure rebellions happened often or at all, but oral traditions suggest gardens always had protectors, and names were their armor. At the end of the month, a final sign appears at the edge of the garden. This plot has no name, but grows because you do. No one removes it, and as the sun sets and the herbs glow golden in the fading light, you understand, this village doesn't punish to destroy, it punishes to transform, because here even correction can bloom. And now the village sleeps. The streets are quiet, cloaked in the velvet hush of midnight. Only the soft creak of timber and the occasional owl call ripple through the air. Smoke curls lazily from a few chimneys, the last breath of fires long reduced to embers. You walk slowly, without urgency. Past the baker's house, where dreams rise like dough. Past the garden, where thyme and mint rest under dew. Past the well, which reflects the moon like a silver coin dropped in still water. Everything feels softer now. Even the stories that began as chaos, mud-splashed robes, cursed flutes, sacred soap, have settled into something gentler. Something that lingers not as drama, but as a strange kind of harmony. You think of Evo, whose hands now know the weight of footsteps, of the tailor, whose hat became a crown for everyone but himself, of the rooster, whose name returned not as defiance, but devotion, of the apprentice who learned that truth sometimes rises like yeast, slowly, and only when the air is right. The punishments weren't just about guilt. They were invitations to remember, to feel the weight of one's actions not as punishment alone, but as story. Shared, performed, carried together. A village is not made of stones or laws, it's made of rituals, names, laughter that echoes after. Rules are rewritten, and as you reach your doorstep, the stars blink overhead like punctuation marks on a chapter closed. You breathe in the cool night, exhale something lighter. The lamp flickers low, and somewhere in the distance you think, maybe you hear a rooster whisper, "Clotilda." Sleep finds you smiling.